Ancient cities were planned with a precision that rivals our modern world. This journey uncovers the hidden blueprints behind vast urban layouts, revealing how civilizations like the Romans and the Maya built their marvels long before satellites or computers. You will discover the core principles that allowed these societies to create thriving, sustainable metropolises, principles we have largely forgotten today. How did they align entire streets with the stars without any advanced tools? What secret knowledge allowed them to manage water and waste for millions? By the end, you will see the ancient world not as a primitive past, but as a source of brilliant solutions for our own urban future. What does a truly resilient city look like to you? These urban plans were far more than simple street grids. They were entire belief systems carved into the earth, a civilization's deepest values made visible. To truly grasp their genius, we must look past the stone and see the philosophy embedded within. Ancient planners saw no separation between the practical needs of a community and its spiritual life. A city's layout was a grand equation, balancing the demands of geography and climate with the profound questions of human existence. Where should the water flow? How do we orient our homes? The answers were never just about efficiency. They were about creating a living map of the cosmos itself, a place where daily life resonated with the movements of the stars and the will of the gods. This is why a temple's placement was as carefully considered as a sewer channel. Both were essential to the city's soul. One addressed the physical health of the people, while the other nurtured their connection to something greater. It was a holistic vision, a complete integration of function and symbol that we have largely lost in our modern, segmented approach to urban design. This foundational principle guided planners across the globe, from the sun-baked river valleys of the Indus to the dense rainforests of Central America. To see this philosophy in action, we can journey to one of its earliest and most striking examples. Mohenjo-Daro rises from the Indus Valley Plains, a metropolis of staggering order built over 4,000 years ago. Its streets run straight for miles, intersecting at perfect right angles to form city blocks of an almost modern regularity. This was not a haphazard settlement. It was a deliberate creation, a grand exercise in civic harmony. Every house was constructed from bricks of a uniform size, each one fired to perfection and laid out according to a master plan. Beneath those orderly streets ran a hidden marvel, a network of covered drains and sewers that channeled waste away from homes, protecting the community's health in a way few ancient cities could match. At the city's heart stood a massive, watertight pool known as the Great Bath, likely a center for ritual and gathering, and a towering granary that stored the community's vital food supplies. These structures point to a powerful, centralized authority, one capable of mobilizing thousands of workers and enforcing a single, unifying vision for the entire urban landscape. The entire city functioned like a single, living organism where every part, from the smallest home to the largest public works, was designed to support the whole. How could a society from the distant Bronze Age achieve such flawless geometry and foresight without the tools we take for granted? They certainly did not have laser levels or satellite imagery. The answer lies in their profound understanding of fundamental surveying. They mastered the use of simple yet incredibly effective tools, long ropes carefully knotted to mark standard lengths, and weighted plumb bobs for establishing true vertical lines would have been their primary instruments. With these, they could lay out the entire grid, ensuring every street and building aligned with the master plan. This commitment to measurement and standardization is what made Mohenjo-Daro a miracle of early urbanism. But this obsession with celestial alignment and geometric perfection was not confined to the Indus Valley. A similar, yet even more ambitious, vision was taking shape on the other side of the world. Across the globe, the same profound principle guided the hands of city builders. From the deserts of Egypt to the highlands of Mesoamerica, entire urban landscapes were deliberately oriented to the heavens. Streets, temples, and pyramids were aligned with the sun, the moon, and specific stars, transforming cities into vast, open-air calendars and observatories. This was a global phenomenon, a testament to a shared human impulse to anchor our world within the cosmic order. In central Mexico, the magnificent city of Teotihuacan stands as a perfect example. Its main artery, the Avenue of the Dead, stretches for miles not on a random bearing, but in precise alignment with the Pleiades star cluster as it set on the horizon. The great pyramids along this avenue, dedicated to the sun and the moon, are positioned to capture the light of the equinox sun in dramatic displays of light and shadow. As historian Dr. Carlos Mendez notes, celestial alignment was far more than a spiritual exercise. It provided a practical framework for the entire society, dictating the optimal times for planting and harvest, scheduling vital community rituals, and creating a reliable, shared calendar. This integration of the cosmos into city planning served a powerful social function. By demonstrating a command of celestial cycles, rulers could visibly reinforce their connection to divine forces, legitimizing their authority and strengthening the social order. The city itself became a microcosm of the universe, a physical echo of the celestial harmony they observed above. This profound desire to mirror the heavens in urban design reveals a level of abstract thought and long-term planning that is truly staggering. But how did this cosmic philosophy translate into the gritty reality of construction? The leap from stargazing to city building required another layer of forgotten genius. The true scale of Angkor's ambition only becomes clear from above. Hidden beneath the dense Cambodian jungle lies a sprawling network of waterways so advanced it sustained one of the largest pre-industrial cities on Earth. At its heart were the barrays, immense reservoirs stretching for miles. These were not simple ponds. They were colossal feats of engineering, designed to capture the torrential monsoon rains and store that precious water for the long, dry months. An intricate web of canals then acted like arteries, distributing this life-giving resource to rice paddies, to homes, and to the very center of royal power. This system was a masterpiece of balance. It prevented destructive floods during the wet season, while ensuring survival and prosperity during the drought. But for the Khmer people, this was more than just brilliant plumbing. The largest reservoir, the West Baray, was seen as an earthly replica of the cosmic ocean from Hindu mythology. The city's central temple, Angkor Wat, represented Mount Meru, the home of the gods, rising from those sacred waters. Every practical act of channeling water was also a spiritual act, reinforcing the cosmic order and the king's divine role within it. The genius of this plan remained partially hidden for centuries, its full complexity masked by jungle and time. Then, modern archaeology unveiled its secrets with LIDAR technology. By scanning the forest canopy from the air, researchers could map the ground beneath, revealing a cityscape far grander than anyone had dreamed. The maps showed not just the known temples, but a vast urban grid of canals, roads, and household mounds, confirming Angkor was a low-density metropolis that stretched over 1,000 square kilometers. This was not just a ceremonial center, it was a fully functioning, hydraulically managed megacity. The success of Angkor stands as a powerful reminder that for many ancient societies, the most important planning wasn't for stone but for water. Managing this vital resource was the ultimate test of a civilization's foresight, a challenge that would determine its survival for generations to come. The stones themselves tell a story of ingenuity. Ancient builders did not rely on imported materials or global supply chains. They looked to the land beneath their feet, mastering the unique properties of local rock, clay, and sand. This intimate knowledge of geology was their first and most crucial tool. In Rome, this led to a revolution. They discovered that by mixing a local volcanic ash with lime and rubble, they could create a material that would not only harden but actually strengthen over time, especially when submerged in water. This was Roman concrete. It freed architects from the limitations of simple stone blocks, allowing them to engineer the soaring arches of aqueducts that brought fresh water across valleys and the colossal, freestanding curves of amphitheaters like the Colosseum. This was architecture as a liquid poured into wooden frames to shape the very skyline of an empire. On the other side of the world, in the high Andes of Peru, the Inca faced a different challenge. Their world was one of violent earthquakes, and their solution was one of breathtaking precision. They worked with massive, irregularly shaped stones, carefully quarrying and shaping each granite block to fit perfectly with its neighbors. They used a technique called ashlar masonry, where stones are cut to fit together without any mortar. The result was walls where you cannot slide a single piece of paper between the joints. During a tremor, these walls would sway and then settle back into place, locked together by their own intricate geometry. It was a system designed to dance with the earth, not fight against it. Such monumental work demanded more than just skilled hands. It required the ultimate coordination of human labor. Consider the transportation of a single Egyptian obelisk, a needle of solid granite weighing hundreds of tons. There were no cranes or heavy machinery. The operation was a masterpiece of logistics. Workers would first load the monolith onto a massive wooden sledge. Then armies of laborers would pull on ropes, dragging the sledge across a specially prepared path. To reduce friction, they likely poured water onto the sand in front of the sledge, creating a slick surface. The final challenge was raising the obelisk into a vertical position, a delicate maneuver involving earthen ramps, pivots, and the coordinated strength of thousands. This was not brute force. It was physics and organization on a grand scale, a silent testament to what a society can achieve through shared purpose and generational knowledge. Each of these construction marvels, from the fluid concrete of Rome to the interlocking stones of the Inca, reveals a universal truth. Ancient urban projects were triumphs of collective effort, where the right technique applied to the right material could produce structures built for eternity. But a city is more than its buildings. Its very shape and location were often dictated by the flow of goods and ideas along the world's first information superhighways, its trade routes. This cosmic integration reached its zenith in the planning of Ming Dynasty Beijing. The entire city was conceived as a precise model of the universe, a physical diagram of celestial harmony. At its absolute center lay the Forbidden City, a walled palace complex representing the pole star, the fixed and unmoving axis around which the heavens were believed to revolve. Concentric walls, including the inner imperial city and the outer city walls, echoed the ancient Chinese concept of the celestial spheres. Every major structure was meticulously positioned along a powerful north-south axis, a central line of symmetry that channeled imperial authority and cosmic balance. This was not merely an aesthetic choice, it was a profound political and spiritual declaration. The emperor, residing in the Forbidden City, was thus positioned as the human embodiment of the pole star, the singular link between the heavenly realm and the earthly world. His rule was presented not as a matter of mere power, but as a natural and necessary component of the cosmic order itself. As sinologist Dr. Lai Wai observes, every aspect of Beijing's plan was intentional, from the width of streets to the orientation of palaces. The placement of gates, temples, and even entire districts followed the principles of feng shui, ensuring the harmonious flow of energy and aligning the urban landscape with the forces of nature. This grand cosmological design served a dual purpose. It created an incredibly efficient administrative machine, where the central axis provided a clear, hierarchical structure for governance. Simultaneously, it was a formidable defensive layout with its massive walls and strategically placed gates, but its most powerful function was psychological. Any visitor, from a common citizen to a foreign ambassador, walking the long, straight avenue toward the emperor's throne, was physically immersed in a worldview that placed the imperial institution at the very center of existence. The city itself was the argument for the emperor's divine mandate, built in wood and stone. This pattern of using urban design to express power and belief was a global constant, a language spoken by empires across the ancient world. The land itself was the first and greatest architect. Ancient city planners possessed a deep wisdom we often overlook today. They understood that a successful urban center could not be imposed upon the landscape. It had to grow from it, embracing the natural contours of hills, rivers, and valleys as integral features of the design. This was not a surrender to nature, but a brilliant collaboration. In Greece, the steep limestone acropolis of Athens provided more than just a dramatic skyline. It was a natural fortress, a place of refuge during times of conflict, with its sheer cliffs forming a ready-made defensive wall. The city then sprawled organically around its base, its winding streets following the pathways of least resistance across the rugged terrain. This elevated heart gave the city both security and a powerful symbolic identity. Meanwhile, in the flat, fertile plains of Mesopotamia, the city of Ur took a different approach. It was built upon the natural levees of the Euphrates River. These raised banks, formed by centuries of silt deposits during floods, offered a twofold advantage. They provided a stable foundation for buildings, safe from the annual inundation, and their elevation created a perfect platform for controlling the river's flow into an intricate network of irrigation canals. The river was not a barrier, it was the city's main street, a bustling aquatic highway for trade and communication, and the source of its agricultural wealth. This symbiotic relationship with the environment produced some of history's most unforgettable cityscapes. In the Andes, the Inca built entire cities like Machu Picchu into near vertical mountainsides, sculpting the rock into breathtaking terraces that prevented erosion and created microclimates for growing food. Long before Venice, other cultures were learning to build on water, constructing settlements on stilts over lakes or weaving them through mangrove swamps, turning potential vulnerabilities into defensive strengths. The goal was always resilience. By aligning their urban forms with the logic of the land, these societies could support dense populations without waging a constant, exhausting war against their surroundings. They harvested the water, used the sun and wind for natural climate control, and fortified their cities with the very geology they built upon. This profound respect for geography reveals a planning philosophy rooted in long-term survival. But the shape of a city was not only a response to the physical world, it was also a mirror of the society that built it, reflecting its hierarchies, its values, and its deepest social structures. While the pyramids and temples capture our imagination, the true skeleton of the Roman Empire was laid on the ground. A web of stone highways stretched for over 80,000 kilometers, from the misty highlands of northern Britain to the sun-baked markets of Syria. These were not mere dirt paths, they were sophisticated engineering projects, built to move legions at a pace that would not be rivaled in Europe for another 1,000 years. The construction was a marvel of layered precision. Workers would first dig a deep trench, then pack it with a foundation of large stones. On top of this, they laid successive layers of smaller rubble, gravel, and sand, all compacted into a formidable, stable base. The final surface was often paved with interlocking polygonal stones, fitted so tightly that they created a smooth, durable roadway. The center of the road was subtly raised, a clever camber that allowed rainwater to drain into gutters at the sides, preventing erosion and keeping the path passable in all weather. This was infrastructure designed for permanence. A traveler was never truly lost on these roads. At regular intervals, stone markers called milestones stood like silent sentinels. These posts indicated the distance to the next major town and ultimately to the golden milestone in the Roman Forum, the symbolic center of the world. For those on long journeys, way stations appeared along the route, offering a place to rest, eat, and change horses. This transformed arduous travel into a manageable, even predictable undertaking. The famous phrase that all roads lead to Rome was more than a metaphor. It was a literal truth and a powerful political statement. Every new highway, whether in Gaul or North Africa, was a tangible thread tying a conquered province back to the imperial heart. This network did more than move soldiers. It pulsed with the lifeblood of commerce, as merchants carried goods from one end of the empire to the other. Perhaps even more importantly, these roads became channels for ideas. Languages, religious beliefs, architectural styles, and new technologies flowed along these stone rivers, slowly weaving a tapestry of shared culture across 3 continents. The Roman vision was macroscopic. They understood that a city's influence and its survival depended on its connection to a wider world. This principle of regional integration, of binding diverse lands into a single, manageable system, would become a blueprint for empires to come. A city's streets and walls are a physical map of the society that built them. This invisible architecture of social order was carefully engineered into the very layout of ancient urban centers. In the Egyptian city of Amarna, the separation was clear and deliberate. The grand villas of scribes and officials, with their private gardens and spacious rooms, were situated downwind from the pungent, bustling neighborhoods of the artisans and laborers. These workers' quarters were compact, uniform, and organized by trade, with potters living alongside potters and sculptors beside sculptors. This was more than simple class distinction. It was a system of spatial efficiency, placing skilled labor close to the palaces and temples they served, while maintaining a strict social hierarchy. At the city's heart stood the sprawling ceremonial complex, a zone reserved for the pharaoh, the priesthood, and the state bureaucracy, physically elevated and separated from the daily life of the common people. This pattern of division was a global constant. Far to the east, in the Indus Valley cities like Mohenjo-Daro, the same principle took shape in the form of a raised citadel. This fortified upper city, walled off from the rest of the metropolis, housed the granaries, ritual baths, and assembly halls that formed the administrative and spiritual core. Below it lay the extensive lower town, a grid of homes and workshops for the vast majority of the population. The city's design was a constant, visible reminder of one's place in the community, reinforcing social order through its very geography. Yet this zoning was not solely about control or segregation. In the vibrant agoras of ancient Greek city-states, we see the other side of this urban logic. The Agora was the city's living room, a designated public square that seamlessly blended politics, commerce, and culture. A citizen could listen to a philosophical debate, purchase goods from a merchant, serve on a jury, and meet with friends, all within the same open, multi-functional space. This careful planning of urban zones, from the exclusive citadel to the inclusive public square, was fundamental to a city's health. It created a framework for efficient resource distribution, allowing for the centralized storage of grain in the citadel and its easy dispersal to the lower town. It fostered a powerful sense of community identity, giving each group its own place while still connecting them to the whole. The city functioned as a single, complex organism, with each distinct part playing a vital role in sustaining the life of the entire system. This intricate social machinery, however, required a powerful economic engine to keep it running. Yet that intricate social machinery needed a powerful engine to keep it running. The true wealth of the first cities was not measured in gold, but in grain. Beyond the bustling streets and towering walls of Mesopotamian metropolises like Uruk lay another marvel of planning, a vast and productive landscape of fields and canals. This was the agricultural hinterland, an inseparable part of the urban organism. The city could not exist without the countryside, and the countryside flourished under the city's administrative hand. It was a symbiotic relationship that fueled the very rise of civilization. At the heart of this system was a mastery of water. Engineers designed intricate networks of canals that branched from the mighty Tigris and Euphrates rivers, channeling life-giving water to fields that stretched to the horizon. This was not a haphazard irrigation effort. It was a carefully coordinated public works project, requiring the labor of thousands and the oversight of a central authority to maintain and manage the flow. This control of water transformed the arid plains into a breadbasket, enabling farmers to produce a massive surplus of barley, dates, and other crops. This surplus was the fundamental breakthrough. For the first time in history, not every person had to farm to survive. This abundance of food freed a significant portion of the population to pursue other trades. People could become potters, weavers, metalworkers, scribes, or priests. They could gather in dense urban centers for protection, to trade their specialized goods, and to participate in a shared culture. The city's planning extended right into these fields. Cuneiform tablets from the era are filled with meticulous records. Scribes documented land ownership, calculated expected yields, and even outlined sophisticated crop rotation schedules to keep the soil fertile. The entire hinterland was managed with the same foresight as the city's streets, a calculated investment in long-term stability. How did a society without modern science achieve such agricultural precision? They relied on generations of accumulated observation, recording what worked and what failed on their clay tablets. This created a body of practical knowledge that was passed down and refined. The success of Mesopotamia teaches us a profound and enduring lesson. A city is not an island. Its resilience, its very ability to support a complex society, is rooted in its harmonious and planned relationship with the land that feeds it. This ancient understanding of urban metabolism, of the vital flow from field to table, is a wisdom we are only now rediscovering as we face our own challenges of sustainability. The spiritual blueprint of a city could be its most enduring feature. Beyond the practical needs for water and shelter, many ancient urban plans were drawn from a deep well of religious belief, transforming entire cityscapes into three-dimensional maps of the cosmos. The physical journey through the city was designed to mirror a spiritual journey, guiding the inhabitant or pilgrim toward a state of enlightenment or closer proximity to the divine. This was not architecture for its own sake, but a deliberate act of world-building where sacred geometry provided the rules. In southern India, the city of Madurai stands as a breathtaking example. Its entire layout was conceived as a giant mandala, a complex geometric figure representing the universe in Hindu and Buddhist traditions. Concentric rectangular streets, like ripples from a stone dropped in a pond, emanate outward from the towering Meenakshi Amman temple at the very center. Moving inward through these streets toward the shrine is not just a physical act, it is a symbolic progression from the outer, material world toward the inner, sacred core of existence. The city itself becomes a device for meditation and worship, its very streets chanting a silent mantra of order and harmony. This principle was echoed far to the west in the bustling heart of ancient Mesopotamia. Babylonian cities were defined by their grand processional ways. These were not ordinary thoroughfares, they were sacred pathways meticulously maintained and reserved for the most important religious festivals. During these events, statues of the gods would be paraded along these routes, accompanied by priests, musicians, and the entire community. The entire city became a stage for a divine drama, reinforcing the bond between the people, their rulers, and the gods they worshipped. As anthropologist Dr. Anya Sharma explains, religion often provided the foundational blueprint for these urban plans. It was the guiding logic that ensured daily life, from a simple walk to the market to the grandest royal ceremony, was seamlessly intertwined with spiritual practice. The placement of a gate, the orientation of a street, the very shape of the city walls all carried profound symbolic weight. This spiritual dimension was not a fleeting concern. It was a powerful force for cultural continuity. For generations, the city's layout served as a constant physical reminder of a shared belief system, teaching the young and reaffirming for the old the core values and stories of their culture. The city became a teacher, its lessons written not on parchment but in the arrangement of its stones. This profound need for spiritual order, however, had to coexist with a much more earthly and urgent requirement: the fundamental need for security. The same city that opened its heart to the heavens also had to fortify itself against very real threats from beyond its walls. For nearly 1,000 years, a single line of stone determined the fate of Western civilization. The land walls of Constantinople were not merely a barrier, they were a multi-layered system of psychological and physical deterrence, a masterpiece of defensive planning that has rarely been equaled. Approaching from the west, any invading army would first confront a wide, deep moat that could be flooded with water. Beyond that lay an outer wall, a lower but formidable rampart. Then, after a broad killing ground, rose the inner, massive Theodosian wall, studded with nearly 100 towering forts. Soldiers could move safely along the ramparts, raining projectiles down on any enemy trapped between the layers. This was defense in depth, a concept modern militaries still study today. The city's very geography was its greatest ally. Built on a triangular peninsula, Constantinople was surrounded by the sea on two sides, protected by a powerful chain that could be stretched across the Golden Horn to block enemy ships. This left only one land approach, a narrow front where the full might of the walls could be concentrated. Every gate was a calculated choke point, a place where traffic could be monitored, taxed, or completely sealed in times of siege. This was urban planning as a grand strategic game, turning the entire city into a fortress. But these fortifications were more than just military hardware. They were a powerful symbol, a physical declaration of the city's divine right to endure. For the citizens within, the sight of those immense, unbreachable walls fostered an unshakable sense of security and divine favor. It was a morale multiplier that attracted skilled craftsmen, wealthy merchants, and scholars from across the known world, all seeking safety within its embrace. The walls did not just keep people out, they drew people in, fueling the city's cultural and economic engine for centuries. The enduring legacy of Constantinople's defenses is a stark lesson in how urban planning can become a matter of survival, a lesson that would echo through the ages as empires continued to shape the land for protection and power. The wealth of nations flowed directly into the design of their cities. Trade was not an afterthought. It was the very lifeblood that shaped urban arteries and defined the city's heart. In Phoenician ports like Tyre, the entire waterfront was a masterpiece of commercial engineering. Massive stone breakwaters reached out into the Mediterranean, creating calm, sheltered harbors for ships to unload their precious cargoes of dyed cloth, glass, and cedar wood. Just beyond the quays stood long, secure warehouses, their thick walls protecting goods before they were sent to markets inland. The city's layout was a direct response to the sea, its wealth and its identity built upon this carefully managed interface between land and water. Far from the coast, the same principle held true. In the oasis city of Samarkand, a crucial node on the Silk Road, the rhythm of trade dictated everything. The city's core was not a palace or a temple, but a sprawling, covered bazaar. Caravans arriving from China with silk and spices, or from the west with gold and glass, would converge here. The streets leading to this central market were deliberately widened to accommodate the flow of camels and carts, while the surrounding neighborhoods naturally developed into districts for specific crafts and trades, their workshops feeding directly into the commercial hub. This economic logic even reshaped domestic life. In Roman cities, the ground floors of multi-story apartment blocks, known as insulae, were almost universally occupied by shops and taverns. The home was not separate from commerce, it was built right on top of it. A baker's family might live in the rooms above their bakery, the smell of fresh bread rising through the building, while a cloth merchant's shop fronted the busy street below. This mixing of uses created vibrant, 24-hour neighborhoods where the clatter of commerce was the sound of the city itself. These commercial centers became more than just places of exchange. They were powerful engines of cultural fusion. In a single Samarkand bazaar, one could hear a dozen languages, see textiles from 3 continents, and taste foods whose recipes had crossed deserts and mountains. This constant influx of people and ideas made cities into crucibles of innovation, where new technologies, artistic styles, and philosophies could merge and evolve. The city's form, from its wide market streets to its mixed-use buildings, was fundamentally designed to facilitate this dynamic interaction. It was a recognition that a city's true strength lay not just in its walls, but in its open markets and welcoming ports. This relentless focus on economic vitality, however, demanded a parallel commitment to another, more foundational principle, one that ensured the city could thrive for generations without exhausting the very environment that sustained it. Even a city carved from stone cannot survive without water. Petra's rose-red cliffs rise from the heart of a desert, a landscape of extreme heat and sudden, violent downpours. For the Nabateans, water was not just a resource, it was the central character in their story of survival. Their genius lay not in fighting the arid environment, but in a profound collaboration with it. They engineered the entire city to capture every possible drop. A network of dams was strategically placed in narrow canyons to control the devastating flash floods that would otherwise have scoured their city from the map. Instead of destruction, they channeled this torrential energy into a lifeline, a complex system of carved channels and terracotta pipes, all relying on the simple, relentless pull of gravity, guided the water into vast underground cisterns. These reservoirs, hidden within the rock, preserved the precious liquid from evaporation, creating a permanent, reliable reserve in the middle of the desert. This was not mere storage, it was a calculated redistribution. The same water that threatened to destroy them was now used to feed public fountains, supply homes carved into the cliffs, and most astonishingly, to cultivate lush gardens and support small-scale agriculture. The city's famous treasury and its grand theater were not isolated monuments. They were part of an integrated design where every structure, from the most magnificent tomb to the simplest dwelling, was positioned in harmony with the water management plan. The very act of carving their city from the living rock was a sustainable choice, minimizing the need for imported building materials and creating a naturally insulated environment that remained cool in the searing heat. Recent archaeological studies have revealed the true sophistication of this system. The terracotta pipes were designed with sedimentation tanks, allowing silt and debris to settle out before the clean water continued its journey. This attention to detail reveals an engineering foresight that rivals modern municipal waterworks. Petra's flourishing was a direct result of this hydraulic mastery, a testament to a society that viewed water management as the highest form of urban planning. It stands as a powerful, timeless lesson in how to build a vibrant, lasting community within the strictest ecological constraints. This ancient dialogue between human need and environmental limits invites us to look closer at other civilizations that achieved a similar, delicate balance. The Agora was the city's living room, the stage upon which democracy was born. In the heart of Athens, this was not merely an open square. It was the physical embodiment of a radical idea that citizens should govern themselves. Surrounded by long, shaded colonnades called stoas, grand temples, and the buildings where councils met, the Agora pulsed with the energy of public life. Here, a philosopher could debate the nature of justice just steps from where a farmer sold his olives. A citizen might be called for jury duty, then linger to hear the latest political news. Every path led to this common ground, deliberately designed to foster the chance encounters and open discussions that were the lifeblood of the polis. This careful planning extended beyond the city center. When Greek settlers founded new colonies like Miletus, they laid them out with precise grid plans. These straight, intersecting streets did more than just organize traffic. They promoted a sense of equality among the citizens. Each block was designed to be similar, suggesting that every resident held a comparable stake in the community. And overlooking it all was the Acropolis, the high city. This fortified hilltop served a dual purpose, a sacred space for temples to the gods and a final defensive stronghold, a constant reminder of the community's spiritual and physical resilience. Great thinkers like Aristotle pondered the very essence of this urban form. He argued that an ideal city must be small enough for a single herald's voice to reach all its citizens, yet large enough to be self-sufficient. This philosophy highlighted a crucial balance. The vibrant, dense urban core needed a supportive relationship with the surrounding countryside that supplied its food and resources. The true power of the Greek model was its ability to translate abstract cultural values into stone and space, making the ideals of citizenship, equality, and shared public life an inescapable part of the daily environment. This was a blueprint for a society built on participation, a legacy so powerful it would echo through the centuries, waiting to be rediscovered. Deep in the Maya world, a city was more than a collection of buildings. It was a sacred diagram of time itself. At centers like Tikal and Kapon, the jungle canopy opens to reveal vast plazas flanked by towering pyramids that seem to scrape the sky. These were not random arrangements. Every structure was placed with intention, creating a ceremonial landscape where the movements of the sun and moon were written directly into the urban fabric. The main pyramid might cast a shadow that precisely bisects the Grand Plaza on a solstice, or a doorway could be aligned to frame the rising of Venus. These celestial events were not just observed, they were architecturally choreographed, transforming the city into a stage for cosmic dramas that validated the ruler's divine connection. The entire layout was a physical manifestation of their complex calendar, a way of making time and space one and the same. This profound integration of astronomy and architecture served a powerful social purpose. When the community gathered in the plaza to witness a king standing atop a pyramid, bathed in the light of the equinox sun, they were participating in a ritual that reinforced the social order. It was a visible, tangible demonstration that their leader was in harmony with the forces that governed the universe, and by extension, their lives. This careful planning extended beyond the ceremonial core, connecting the entire city through a network of raised stone causeways known as sakbiab. These white roads, elevated above the swampy ground, were more than just practical pathways for trade and the movement of people. They were symbolic arteries linking temples, plazas, and residential districts into a single, cohesive whole, both physically and spiritually. The authority to command such grand projects rested with the king, a fact proudly recorded in stone. Thanks to decades of work deciphering Maya glyphs, we now know the names of specific rulers who commissioned these urban masterpieces. Inscriptions detail their construction projects, boasting of raising new temples and dedicating ball courts. The ball game itself was far more than sport. It was a ritual reenactment of cosmic cycles, with its own court carefully positioned within the city's sacred geography. The Maya planner's genius was this holistic vision, seamlessly weaving together astronomy, religion, and politics into a living, functioning urban space. This level of sophistication forces us to ask a compelling question. Who were the masterminds behind these plans? What kind of mind could hold the cycles of the stars, the will of the gods, and the needs of a thriving community in a single, unified vision? The masterminds behind these urban wonders were not mythical figures, but highly skilled professionals whose work blended art, science, and spirit. In ancient Egypt, the name Imhotep echoes through time. He was the chief architect for Pharaoh Djoser, the genius who conceived the very first pyramid, the Step Pyramid at Saqqara. But Imhotep was more than just a builder. Historical records describe him as a high priest, a skilled physician, and a sage. His wisdom was so profound that centuries after his passing, he was worshipped as a god. This tells us something vital about his society. The ability to plan and create on such a monumental scale was seen as a power bordering on the divine. It was a holistic form of genius that saw no separation between the spiritual realm and the physical city. Half a world away and centuries later, the Roman Empire operated on a different, yet equally brilliant model. Their urban expansion was driven by the practical minds of military engineers. Men like Vitruvius, who served under Julius Caesar, penned detailed treatises that became the architectural Bibles of the Western world. In his work, he laid out the core principles for everything from selecting a healthy city site to constructing aqueducts and public buildings. His famous triad of firmitas, utilitas, venustas, meaning strength, utility, and beauty, became the timeless recipe for successful construction. These Roman planners were masters of logistics and standardization. They could arrive in a newly conquered territory, assess the landscape, and deploy a legion of soldiers to build a complete city with a forum, baths, and sewers, all following a recognizable Roman blueprint. This was planning as a tool of empire, replicating order and civilization from the damp forests of Britain to the deserts of North Africa. The work required an immense coordination of human effort. We can almost hear the voices of these planners, not in grand proclamations, but in the mundane details scratched onto clay tablets and papyri. A fragment from ancient Mesopotamia might list the daily beer and bread rations for thousands of laborers, a crucial calculation to keep the project moving. An inscription in a Maya city proudly names the ruler and the master sculptor who oversaw the carving of a new temple facade. These artifacts are precious because they pull back the curtain on the vast, collaborative enterprise of city building. It was not the work of a solitary genius, but of a coordinated team that included surveyors to lay out the lines, scribes to manage the accounts, priests to consecrate the ground, and rulers to finance and command the entire endeavor. This profession crossed social boundaries. While the chief architect might be a noble like Imhotep, the engineers who made his vision real often came from the ranks of the military or the educated middle class. Their shared knowledge created a kind of invisible guild, a transmission of techniques and principles that passed from mentor to apprentice for generations. To see a city like Teotihuacan or Mohenjo-Daro is to see the legacy of these forgotten minds. They were the ones who held the entire cosmic and practical blueprint in their heads, translating a civilization's highest ideals into streets, walls, and waterways. Their work prompts a fascinating question. How did they record these complex blueprints, these intricate plans for cities meant to last for eternity, without the paper or digital files we rely on today? The blueprint for an entire civilization was pressed into wet clay. Long before ink met parchment, Mesopotamian scribes were meticulously documenting the inner workings of their cities on cuneiform tablets. These fragile records, recovered from ancient centers like Nippur and Babylon, offer us a direct line to the world's first urban administrators. They are not just lists of kings and battles, but something far more revealing: detailed accounts of land surveys, construction projects, and the daily business of running a metropolis. We can read a scribe's note allocating a specific plot of land to a temple, or a surveyor's report detailing the precise measurements of a new canal. This was a society obsessed with order, and their written word was the tool that made that order possible. This bureaucratic genius found its ultimate expression in the Code of Hammurabi. While famous for its laws, this stele of black stone also functioned as an ancient building code. It explicitly outlined a builder's liability, stating that if a house he constructed collapsed and caused the loss of the owner, then that builder would be held responsible. This legal framework underpinned the entire urban environment, creating a system of accountability that ensured quality and safety for every citizen. It transformed urban planning from a matter of simple geometry into a matter of law and social contract. The meticulous preservation of these records, stored in temple archives and royal libraries, was not an accident. It was a conscious strategy for survival. When a master planner passed away, his knowledge did not die with him. It lived on in the tablets, allowing subsequent generations to maintain, repair, and expand the city's complex systems of water, walls, and worship. This written tradition provided a continuity of technique that allowed cities to flourish for centuries, adapting to new challenges without losing their core identity. The very act of writing down a plan, of turning an idea into a permanent record, was a revolutionary leap in human organization. It allowed for a scale of coordination previously unimaginable, binding together the work of thousands across vast distances and generations. This reliance on tangible records stands in fascinating contrast to another great empire, one that managed its vast domains without a written script as we know it, yet communicated its architectural will with breathtaking precision. High on a knife-edge ridge in the Andes, Machu Picchu defies gravity. This city in the clouds was not built upon the mountain, but woven into its very fabric through the revolutionary use of terraces. These were not simple garden plots. They were the foundational technology that made life possible on such impossible terrain. Each retaining wall, built from stones so perfectly fitted they have withstood centuries of earthquakes and torrential rain, did far more than just hold back the earth. These terraces created flat, stable land where none existed, providing the only possible foundation for temples, homes, and palaces on the precipitous slopes. But their genius was multidimensional. They also prevented catastrophic soil erosion from the heavy mountain rains, anchoring the entire city to the mountain itself. And most brilliantly, they transformed steep, unusable inclines into thousands of acres of fertile, arable land. This was a civilization literally carving its sustenance from the rock. An intricate network of stone-lined canals would channel water from natural springs, feeding each level of these agricultural staircases. This system created a series of microclimates, allowing the Inca to grow a diverse range of crops at altitudes that would otherwise be barren. The entire city was a self-sustaining organism where the food supply was integrated directly into the urban structure, a seamless blend of agriculture and architecture. This practical mastery was inseparable from a profound spiritual vision. The city's layout was a deliberate reflection of the sacred landscape. Temples and key structures were carefully oriented toward specific mountain peaks, which were themselves revered as deities or aligned to capture the first and last rays of the sun during solstice events. The famous Intihuatana stone, often called the hitching post of the sun, functioned as a sophisticated astronomical clock, its angles and shadows marking the passing seasons with uncanny accuracy. The entire urban plan was a dialogue with the cosmos, a physical prayer etched into the mountainside. How can we understand a planning philosophy so advanced it built a wonder of the world, yet left behind no written blueprints or ledgers? The answer lies not in scrolls but in stone and in the living memory of community. The Inca relied on a vast, organized labor system known as the mita, a form of communal service where citizens contributed their work to state projects. This collective effort, passed down through generations of oral tradition and practical apprenticeship, was the engine that built these terraced marvels. The knowledge of how to fit a stone, how to channel water, and how to align a temple was embedded in the culture itself, a shared inheritance that required no written manual. This adaptive, holistic approach stands in stark contrast to much of modern urban development, which often seeks to flatten and conquer the land rather than collaborate with it. The Inca did not see the mountain as an obstacle to be overcome. They saw it as a partner. Their legacy challenges us to reconsider our own relationship with the environments we build in, suggesting that true resilience comes not from dominating nature, but from learning its rhythms and integrating our designs within them. An entire city could vanish in plain sight. Deep beneath the rocky spires of Cappadocia, the landscape hides one of history's most astonishing urban secrets. The underground city of Derinkuyu descends over 200 feet into the earth, a labyrinth of 18 excavated levels that could shelter as many as 20,000 people. This was not a simple cave network. It was a meticulously planned subterranean metropolis, complete with living quarters, storerooms, wineries, and even churches carved directly into the volcanic rock. Long, sloping tunnels connected each level, while massive, circular stone doors weighing half a ton each could be rolled across passageways to seal off entire sections from invaders. Life continued for months at a time in this hidden world, all while the surface above appeared as a normal, functioning settlement. The true genius of its design lay in sustaining that life. A 55-meter-deep ventilation shaft, stretching from the very bottom level to the open air, acted as the city's lungs, constantly cycling fresh air throughout the entire complex. Dozens of similar, smaller shafts provided additional breath, ensuring that even the deepest chambers remained habitable. Meanwhile, ingenious wells tapped into underground water sources, creating a secure and independent supply that no besieging army could poison or cut off. The planners even accounted for waste with designated areas for disposal that protected the fresh water from contamination. This was a complete, self-contained ecosystem engineered for survival. Historians note that these cities were not built in a single generation. They were expanded and refined over centuries, their layouts evolving to meet new threats and accommodate growing populations. This vertical urbanism fundamentally redefines our understanding of ancient city planning. It was not just about spreading across the land, but about building deep within it, creating a hidden dimension of urban life. The existence of Derinkuyu and its sister cities proves that ancient planners thought in three dimensions, mastering the challenges of underground engineering with a foresight that still inspires awe today. The desert wind was not an enemy to be blocked, but a resource to be harnessed. Across the sun-scorched cities of ancient Persia, a brilliant architectural innovation rose against the skyline, the wind-catching tower or Bagir. These towering structures, often gracing the tops of buildings, were designed with open vents that faced the prevailing winds. They captured the cool, upper-level breezes and funneled them down into the interior spaces below, creating a natural and cost-free form of air conditioning. At the same time, the design cleverly allowed the hot air trapped inside to escape, creating a continuous, refreshing circulation. This was climate control through pure physics, a testament to a deep understanding of local environmental patterns. The same sophisticated thinking shaped entire city layouts. In Yemen, the walled city of Shibam presents a stunning silhouette, its densely packed mud brick towers rising like a man-made canyon from the desert floor. This vertical design was a direct response to the harsh climate. By building so close together, the structures cast long, cooling shadows on the narrow streets and courtyards below, creating pockets of shade that offered respite from the relentless sun. The tight arrangement also minimized the external surface area exposed to solar radiation, keeping the interiors remarkably cool. In stark contrast, settlements in colder northern climates embraced the opposite principle. Their designs were compact and inward-looking, with buildings clustered tightly together to reduce exposure to chilling winds and to conserve precious heat. Streets were often narrow and winding, not out of a lack of planning, but to act as windbreaks, creating sheltered microclimates for their inhabitants. This thoughtful adaptation went beyond mere architecture. It was common to find courtyards with lush gardens and tranquil water features integrated directly into the urban fabric. The evaporation from these water elements provided a natural cooling effect, while the plants improved air quality and offered serene green oases. These were not decorative luxuries, they were functional components of a city's climate system. By carefully studying these ancient strategies, we see a powerful truth emerge. Sustainability was not a modern invention, but a foundational principle of urban planning. These cities were not built to conquer their environments, but to collaborate with them, working in harmony with seasonal cycles to reduce energy needs and dramatically enhance daily comfort. This profound concern for the physical well-being of citizens through thoughtful environmental design naturally extended to another critical aspect of urban life, the foundational principles of public health. The streets of Mohenjo-Daro were engineered for health. Inside the smallest homes, you would find a simple but revolutionary feature, a brick-lined latrine connected directly to the city's main drainage network. This was not a luxury for the elite, but a standard amenity for nearly every household, a testament to a society that placed immense value on collective well-being. The system was a marvel of gravity and foresight. Waste from individual homes would flow into small, covered channels running along the main streets. These channels then fed into larger, centralized sewers, all built from precisely fired bricks of a uniform size and covered with heavy stone slabs for safety and to control odor. This uniformity is a powerful clue. It points to a central authority enforcing a building code, ensuring that every component of the system could be repaired, replaced, and upgraded as needed, generation after generation. The planning extended beyond waste removal. Public wells provided clean water for neighborhoods, while many homes featured dedicated bathing platforms with efficient water drainage, further emphasizing a culture of personal hygiene. The archaeological record from these cities tells a compelling story. Researchers have noted a remarkable lack of evidence for widespread epidemics that plagued other contemporary urban centers. This suggests their sophisticated approach to sanitation was not just an architectural achievement, but a public health triumph. The entire city functioned like a living body, with its network of drains acting as a circulatory system that constantly cleansed the urban form. This emphasis on cleanliness reveals a sophisticated urban ethos, a profound understanding that a city's greatness is measured not only by its grand monuments, but by the health and dignity of its everyday citizens. This ancient commitment to public welfare through intelligent design would find echoes in the grandest empire of the classical world, where engineering genius was channeled into bringing life itself to the heart of the city. A city's streets could be a tool of conquest as sharp as any sword. When the Assyrian king Sennacherib rebuilt his capital at Nineveh, he was not merely constructing a royal residence. He was engineering a landscape of awe and fear. The city's walls were so massive they could have chariot races run along their tops, a deliberate display of impossible scale. The approach to his palace was a long, ceremonial way, lined with colossal sculptures of winged bulls and lions. For any visiting dignitary from a conquered territory, this walk was a carefully choreographed psychological ordeal. They would pass scenes of military victory and royal power carved into stone, a silent, looming narrative of Assyrian dominance long before they ever reached the throne room. This was planning as theater, designed to overwhelm the senses and crush the spirit of rebellion before it could even form. A similar, though differently focused, strategy unfolded in the Persian Empire. At Persepolis, the great ceremonial capital, the design was one of harmonious integration. The city followed a uniform architectural style, with grand stairways and audience halls that brought together representatives from every corner of the empire. The Apadana, or Great Audience Hall, featured reliefs showing delegates from 24 different provinces, each bringing their distinctive tribute. This was not a celebration of diversity for its own sake. It was a powerful visual statement that all these different peoples were now united under a single Persian order. The city's layout itself was the message, a stone and mortar declaration that the empire was a cohesive, manageable whole. Across the ocean, the Aztec rulers of Tenochtitlan employed their own brilliant form of hydraulic hegemony. As their empire expanded, they systematically redesigned their island capital, carving it into a precise grid of canals and districts. These waterways were not just for transportation. They were the empire's circulatory system for tribute, goods flowing into the city from subject states, from food and textiles to precious materials, were channeled along these predetermined aquatic routes directly to central storehouses. This allowed for efficient monitoring, taxation, and redistribution, turning the physical plan of the city into an engine of economic control. The entire urban form was recalibrated to manage the fruits of conquest. As political scientist Dr. Elena Torres observes, urban planning was propaganda in stone, shaping perceptions of authority and order. A subject walking the wide, straight avenues of an imperial capital did not see random buildings. They saw an expression of power so total it could reshape the very earth, a force that could dictate where people lived, how they moved, and even how they perceived their place in the world. The city itself became the state's most persuasive argument for its own legitimacy. This deliberate orchestration of space reveals that ancient cities were not just places where power was held, but active instruments through which power was exercised and made visible to all. A temple in ancient Egypt was far more than a building of stone. It was a carefully calibrated machine designed to bridge the world of the living and the divine. The entire city of Thebes was a grand expression of this principle, its layout a direct reflection of the cosmic order. The great temple of Karnak, for instance, was not simply oriented toward the sunrise. Its axis was aligned with the precise point on the horizon where the sun would rise on the winter solstice, a day of profound symbolic renewal. This alignment transformed the annual event into an architectural spectacle, with sunlight piercing the temple's deepest, darkest sanctuaries. The lifeblood of this entire system was the Nile. The river's predictable, life-giving floods were not seen as a mere natural phenomenon, but as the earthly counterpart to the celestial cycles above. The temples were positioned with an intimate understanding of the river's rhythms, their massive pylons and open courtyards acting as monumental gateways between the cultivated order of the riverbank and the perceived chaos of the desert beyond. Connecting these sacred sites were long, straight processional avenues, their paths flanked by rows of majestic sphinxes. Walking this route during a festival was not a casual journey. It was a spiritual progression, a physical movement from the outer world toward the inner sanctum, mirroring the soul's journey toward the gods. The city's design left no doubt about the source of this cosmic harmony. The pharaoh's palace and administrative centers were situated in close proximity to the main temples, visually reinforcing his role as the indispensable link between the people and the divine. This connection was cemented for eternity in the mortuary temples built beside royal tombs in the Valley of the Kings. These structures were not just memorials. They were active institutions where priests performed daily rituals to sustain the pharaoh's spirit in the afterlife, ensuring his continued benevolence and the kingdom's enduring stability. The entire urban plan was a perpetual reminder that the ruler's power extended beyond his mortal life, woven into the very fabric of time and space. This profound symbolism was even encoded in the geometry of the buildings themselves. Master architects employed precise mathematical ratios, such as the golden section, to determine the proportions of chambers, the height of columns, and the slope of pyramids. These were not arbitrary aesthetic choices. They were believed to resonate with the fundamental harmonies of the universe, creating structures that felt eternally stable and spiritually potent. A person standing in such a space would unconsciously feel this balance, this perfect order, and be reminded of the enduring power of the civilization that built it. Thebes was a city where every street, every wall, and every column served a dual purpose. It housed the living while preparing them for the afterlife, managed the practical needs of a state while reinforcing a timeless worldview. This seamless integration of the spiritual and the administrative reveals a planning philosophy of breathtaking ambition, one that sought to build nothing less than heaven on earth. How does this compare to the way other great empires used their cityscapes to project power and belief? A single house in Çatalhöyük had no streets to connect it. This ancient settlement, one of the very first of its kind, grew like a honeycomb with dwellings built directly against one another and entered through holes in the roof. It was a community turned inward, a design born from mutual protection and shared walls. This was urban planning in its most nascent form, a direct response to the fundamental need for security and social cohesion. But as populations swelled and technologies like metalworking advanced, the very concept of a city transformed. The simple, organic clusters gave way to deliberate designs. The Greeks did not invent the grid, but they refined it into a powerful political tool. In colonies like Miletus, the rigid, rectilinear plan did more than just organize space. It promoted a sense of equality among citizens, suggesting that each held a comparable stake in the new community. Then came Rome, who looked at the Greek blueprint and thought on an entirely different scale. They took the concept of infrastructure and made it macroscopic, building aqueducts that spanned valleys and road networks that stitched 3 continents together. Their cities were standardized modules of power, replicated from the damp frontiers of Britain to the deserts of Syria, all centered on the Forum, the Basilica, and the Bath complex. This was planning as an engine of empire, yet this accumulated knowledge was not a straight, upward trajectory. The collapse of Roman order in Western Europe led to a period where large-scale urban planning largely vanished. The great stone networks fell into disrepair, and the focus shifted to localized feudal strongholds. Walled towns grew organically around a castle or a monastery, their winding, narrow streets a stark contrast to the Roman grids, a practical adaptation to a more fragmented and insecure world. It was a profound loss of technical and organizational capacity, but the knowledge was not lost forever. It was preserved, often in monastic libraries or in the continuing practices of the Eastern Roman Empire in Constantinople, waiting to be rediscovered. This cyclical pattern of innovation, decline, and rediscovery is a crucial part of the story. It shows that ancient urbanism was never a static achievement, but a dynamic, evolving conversation between human ambition and historical circumstance. Each era built upon the ruins and the records of the last, sometimes advancing, sometimes forgetting, but always eventually reaching back for that thread of accumulated wisdom. This long-term perspective transforms these city plans from mere archaeological curiosities into a cumulative human achievement, a testament to our enduring struggle to build a better, more ordered world. And it raises a compelling question for our own time. As we look back on this vast tapestry of urban evolution, what threads are we weaving into the cities of our future? A forgotten manuscript, hidden in a monastery library for 1,000 years, suddenly resurfaced and changed the shape of our world. Vitruvius's 10 books on architecture became the blueprint for a new urban revolution during the Renaissance. After the long, winding streets of the medieval era, European thinkers looked back to the clear, rational order of Rome. They pored over these ancient texts, rediscovering the principles of symmetry, proportion, and the vital importance of public space. This was not mere imitation, it was a creative rebirth, a fusion of classical wisdom with a new humanist spirit. Artists and architects became the new city planners. Leonardo da Vinci, for instance, looked at the crowded, unsanitary cities of his time and envisioned something radically different. His sketches for an ideal city reveal a mind thinking in multiple dimensions. He designed cities on 2 levels, one for pedestrians and commerce, and a lower, hidden network for carts, services, and most importantly, a sophisticated canal system for waste removal. This was a direct application of ancient Roman engineering, reimagined for a new age, prioritizing light, air, and public health in a way that was centuries ahead of its time. The most dramatic transformation occurred in Rome itself. Pope Sixtus V embarked on an ambitious project to remake the ancient capital, not with new walls but with new lines of sight. He carved long, straight avenues through the city's tangled medieval core, connecting major basilicas with clear, processional routes. At key intersections, he raised the massive Egyptian obelisks that had lain toppled for centuries, turning them into visual anchors and symbols of a renewed, orderly Christian empire. This new plan made the city navigable, but its true genius was psychological. It created a sense of grandeur and control, a visible web of power and piety that guided both pilgrim and citizen. The Renaissance proved that ancient planning was a living tradition, not a relic. Its principles traveled from the drafting tables of Italy to the grand boulevards of Paris, and eventually to the very foundation of Washington, District of Columbia. The layout of the American capital, with its diagonal avenues overlaid on a grid and its central mall, is a direct descendant of this Renaissance revival. It shows us that the most enduring urban ideas are never truly lost. They simply wait, sleeping in old books and buried stones, for a new generation to wake them and build upon their timeless foundations. Our modern concrete jungles could learn a great deal from these ancient blueprints. Today's urban challenges, from stifling congestion to climate vulnerability, are not entirely new. Ancient planners faced similar tests of resilience, and their solutions offer a powerful toolkit for our own future. Consider the simple wisdom of mixed-use zoning, a concept perfected in Roman cities where shops and homes coexisted on the same street. This created vibrant, walkable neighborhoods that reduced the need for long commutes, a lesson we are now painfully relearning as we battle traffic and isolation. The green corridors and urban gardens found in places like Petra are another timeless strategy. They were not just aesthetic. They provided food, moderated temperatures through evaporation, and created vital community spaces for social connection, a holistic approach we are only now embracing with modern green infrastructure. The ancient world mastered passive climate control long before the invention of air conditioning. The wind-catching towers of Persia, the Badgers, are being studied and revived by contemporary architects seeking sustainable, energy-free ways to cool buildings. These structures harness the wind itself, funneling cool breezes deep into homes without consuming a single watt of electricity. Similarly, the pedestrian-friendly scale of the Greek Agora, a space designed for human interaction rather than vehicle throughput, directly inspires the design of modern public squares and car-free zones in cities from Copenhagen to Bogota. These are not nostalgic copies. They are intelligent adaptations of proven principles. Urban planner Dr. Kenji Tanaka reflects that we must look backward to move forward, integrating timeless principles with contemporary needs. This perspective shifts the entire goal of city building. It champions long-term thinking over short-sighted development, community involvement over top-down imposition, and resilience over mere efficiency. The ancient focus on water-sensitive design, so evident in the canal networks of Angkor and the cisterns of Petra, provides a crucial model for managing the increasingly erratic water cycles of a changing climate. By studying how past civilizations thrived for centuries within their environmental means, we find more than just historical curiosity. We find a hopeful path toward creating modern cities that are not only smarter, but more livable and equitable for everyone who calls them home. We stand today at the precipice of a new urban age, yet the most profound lessons for our future are carved in the stones of our deepest past. This journey through the planned marvels of antiquity reveals a legacy of breathtaking innovation, where city building was an act of spiritual devotion and ecological partnership. From the watertight drains of Mohenjo-Daro to the cosmic avenues of Teotihuacan, these ancient master planners understood a truth we are only now relearning. A truly great city is not a conquest over nature, but a delicate, brilliant collaboration with it. They balanced the urgent needs of the community with the timeless rhythms of the environment and the heavens, creating urban landscapes that were both profoundly practical and spiritually resonant. As our own cities grapple with congestion, climate vulnerability, and a longing for community, we have a vast and untapped reservoir of wisdom to draw from. The ancient world offers us more than just historical intrigue. It provides a hopeful blueprint for a more resilient and harmonious urban future. Let these forgotten blueprints inspire you to see the streets you walk in a new light. What elements of ancient wisdom would you bring to the city of tomorrow? Share your vision in the comments, and if you enjoyed this journey, subscribe for more explorations into the hidden structures of history. Until next time, keep looking for the patterns woven into the world around you.